So to start off with, Jessica, what made you decide to do tutoring for maths and science in the first place? I know that was a while ago now, but
I think it was because I realized that I was more inclined to do history and writing like English because I have a big love for reading. I enjoy studying music. So I realized I wasn't very interested much in maths and science, but I still found it very, very interesting, but I just couldn't really wrap my head around it. And because I want to do law at university and my aim is to be a corporate lawyer, um, I realized I need to have those skills because it's good for just analysis, not just of words, but of numbers. Like it's really, really useful. And I really, really live by this quote, and it's comfort is the enemy of progress. Um, and I decided to go out of my comfort zone, and it kind of gave me a structure. So I'm really, really happy.
Hmm. Yeah, going out of your comfort zone can be scary, but then you kind of, you do it and you think, okay, it wasn't so bad after all. Just talking about how you were saying, you're more kind of history, English, and you couldn't really wrap your head around the maths and the sciences. Think back then to your first couple of lessons when you started with us. What were those lessons like? How were you feeling? Taking into account that science and maths weren't your strengths at that time.
I'm gonna be honest, it was really overwhelming at first. And a part of me was like, oh, why am I doing this? It's really, really difficult. It's like a classroom environment, but there's no disruptions. It's just pure learning. So whenever you're like thrown into that midterm, it can be difficult. But my main thing is I kept kind of going down to my mum and saying, this is so difficult, but she kept saying, keep at it because it will get better. So my mum also, she paid a lot of like, she's my main inspiration. So if times get really, really tough, I go to her and she's always like, keep pushing. And like the results have shown, if you just keep at it, it does work, even if you don't think it does.
Excellent. So your mum's been encouraging you to stick with it, essentially. And when you have stuck with it, what results? So you've just talking about results. What results have you noticed? So let's think about when you started with your maths and science. You started around a grade 3 at the time. Then at Christmas, you had your first mocks. You got the results to your first mocks. What grades did you get then?
In my science, I went from a failing grade of a grade 3 to actually a good pass, which is a 5. And I do higher tiers, so it's difficult. So I was very, very happy with that. And what I found was even whenever the lessons were difficult and I didn't think anything was going in, I found the majority of the questions that we'd been doing in the classes came up in my mocks. And I was like, wait a minute, I know what reduction is. I was like, oh my gosh, this came up. It's like just like Sylvia's classes. So they came up. It's really exam kind of specified. So it literally targets everything. So whenever it's in your exam, you're not stressed out because you've already covered it. And in my maths, I did foundation at the beginning and I put in a bit of revision, but it was really down to my maths tutor because she really, really helped. If I had a specific topic that I wanted to go through a past paper, then she'd help me and really, really go into the depths of how to work it out step by step. And I got a 5 in the foundation thing. And I asked to be moved up because I wanted to push myself even more, even if I failed the higher tier one. And then by the end of my second mock, I thought I was definitely getting a U in my maths, but doing the higher tier, I actually got a 4, which is a pass in it. So I was ecstatic. So the tutoring has by far helped the most.
Excellent. Yeah, and I remember speaking to your mom and she talked about how I think when you got the mocks results in your maths doing the higher paper, the students who didn't do well were called back. And I think you weren't called back, so you weren't too sure whether, did you do well or did you not do well or not. So, that actually showed that you you did well. So that's really, really fantastic. Let's talk about this catch-up classes that you come to. How have you found that those catch-up classes have been helping you?
They've actually been really helpful because it's kind of spontaneous, because you don't exactly know what part of science you're going to be covering, and you'll have different teachers that have different kind of specialities. So if you're really struggling to understand a certain part of a lesson or a part of science you haven't paid for, you have that hour to actually just kind of even get some exam techniques and some content from those lessons. So I think they're extremely useful, and the fact it's not overwhelming, there's no homework, it's like once a week, and it's a Saturday, it's at an appropriate time. It's really, really nice, and it just, you feel the knowledge kind of going in, because it's it uses active recall, because they kind of ask us if there's something that they've covered or if there's any questions, and they're not kind of demeaning whenever you ask questions, which unfortunately some teachers are in school. So it's really, really useful, because it kind of fills in the gaps that you may have missed either in school or sometimes in tutoring.
Yeah, because it's not just necessarily what you've done throughout the week, because science is, as I always say, it's so massive. And so it's making sure that, you know, we are focusing on the other topic as well, so that you don't forget it, and we're pulling it in, as you said, we're using that active recall and that exam technique to help you as well. So a lot of the classes that you've been in are the group classes. What do you enjoy about being in classes and groups with other students?
For me personally, I'm not a group person. Because I'm an only child, I'm used to kind of getting majority, if not all, of the attention. But the group classes, they were really inclusive of everyone. And if you were kind of quiet, I feel like the teachers could sense if you were not understanding or if you're finding it too easy. So I think calling on you, they didn't do it really kind of in trying to trick you or get you out. They did it in a way to understand, like to see, basically to test your knowledge, to see if you're listening, or if you're finding it too easy, or if you're just struggling with one particular thing. And it's not kind of judgmental, it's very, everyone's kind of on the same kind of pace, and there's no distractions, again, because it's virtual. But even for me, who isn't a group person, I found it very, very useful.
Yeah, because it helps to, like you say, it's not doing it, it can be putting you on the spot, but it's not doing it to put you on the spot. Is to see what you know, and then, okay, what don't you know, and what do we need to focus on with you? So as you say, it's making sure that even though it's a group class, it is all inclusive as well. Another thing that we have is homework, lots of homework. How have you found those? How have you found the homework? How have they helped you, and that kind of thing?
They've actually been very, very helpful, because they're not too often, but they're not, but they're just often enough. It's just kind of perfect. But at first it can be a bit overwhelming if you're ready to like have a really, really relaxed night, or put on some music, or read a book, watch a movie or anything, and then you kind of see this big past paper to do, but whenever you do it, you realize it really, really helps. And I think it's just the right amount, and I think it's kind of perfect, because it mixes all of the different things that may come up in your exam. So yeah,
exam technique again. So yeah, absolutely, definitely. All right, awesome. So you've done really well, as I said earlier, jumped up that 2 grade in close to a term. Exams are around the corner for you now, Jessica. So for your maths and science, what grades are you aiming to achieve in the summer?
So in science, I'm aiming to jump another 2 grades, which is difficult, and I'm putting in a lot of effort. So I'm aiming for grade 7 in my science.
Fantastic.
And for my maths, I've been putting in a lot of effort, and I've been doing past papers and marking them and seeing how my grades are improving. So I think I'm either aiming for a grade 6 in my maths, or maybe if I really push myself, a grade 7. So I'm aiming for kind of solid grades in my weak points, just so I have kind of those like to stabilize me. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. So high grade, fantastic for both the maths and the science. And so you talked about being a lawyer, you know, you want to go and be a lawyer. And so what's the next steps then after this? Does that mean going to sixth form, to college? What's the next, what's the route for you in terms of moving towards being a lawyer?
So in the summer, I'm aiming to do an internship for law, because my mum has some friends at her church that have connections to people who have a law firm. And I'm aiming to do a summer internship there, but also have a job on the side so I can save up some money. Because I've never had a proper job before. I've only ever done chores. And it would be a really nice experience. But I have taught for about maybe a week in Uganda, where my mum is from. I taught some, I think they were between the ages of 17 and 18, and I was 12, and I was teaching them English. So
wow.
I'm very proud of that.
Absolutely.
I put it on my CV. But then I was thinking, after that, I'm going to do sixth form. I've already applied at my school that I'm at. And I'm doing English literature, history, and drama, because I have a love for reading and writing and theatre and movies. And after that, I'm not going to take a gap year because I'm a bit lazy. I'm just going to go straight in, and I want to study, I think, corporate law, but that might change. I like keeping my options open. And just go into law school and become a full-time lawyer. That's what I'd like to do.
That's great. So there's a plan there in front of you, a plan in terms of, you know, doing an internship at the same time, doing some work. Yeah, so that's fantastic. It's really good to have that. Okay, and considering you've been with us now for, gosh, I think about 7 or 8 months, time flies. What advice, Jessica, would you give to other students who were in the same position as you when you started, when you felt like, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't understand this, I'm not good enough, and so on and so forth? What advice would you give to other students?
The main point I would give is don't give up. Even if you think it's not going in or it's not working, just keep sticking to it, because you're not only benefiting yourself by sticking to it, you're actually benefiting others who may feel, if you're in a classroom and you see the people kind of either not being there or the other students kind of dropping out, it really, really demotivates you, because we all kind of copy each other some way, form or another. And I think just stick to it, because you never know what you can learn, and you never know in the times that you're tired or you're not listening what can go into your head and you'll find is on your exam. My main thing is just stick to it. And if you're struggling, turn to someone like your parents. If your parents don't have your kind of, if you don't have your full parents kind of support, either turn to teachers or anyone, your friends that can really, really stick by you, because if they're really your friends or teachers, people that care about you, they'll know what's best for you. And it dramatically improves your grades, but not only that, your confidence in the classes. So yeah.
Excellent. Okay, and one last question for you. If a parent or a student or a friend of yours was considering joining us for tutoring, what would you say to them?
I would say that it's a really, really good choice, because the hours, they're really, really flexible. As in, they're not at like 7 in the morning. They're at between kind of 5:30ish to like 7:30. Not, of course, the full time, but they can start around about 5:30, I think. So they're really, really, they're adjusted for if you have after school activities, or if you'd like to have a rest or revise in your own time. They're really inclusive. The reports that you get from your parents, unless you're misbehaving, you have something to hide. They really inform your parents about how you're doing in those classes and how they can support you further. And it really, I just can't emphasize it enough. It really, really does help, because you just keep finding that the things you cover come up in your exam. And I remember in class, the reactivity series, I just kept kind of hearing your voice in my head, like, please stop like calling me, something like that. And it always sticks in your head, and it's really, really useful. And it kind of gets almost like draining, because it's like school, but you actually you tend to enjoy it after a while, because you're really, really gaining confidence and knowledge.
Yeah, and Jessica, what I like about you and other students in that class as well, thinking back to it, is that where you started from that lower grade, you you had those gaps in your knowledge. So as a teacher, when I'm sort of teaching the class, it might be that I'm not getting that much response, and I'm sort of thinking to myself, do they understand? Should I go through this again? I'm not sure they understand. But at the end of the day, what then happened 2 months, 3 months later is all of you guys, there was a massive improvement, in your grades. And so there's something about, even if the teacher is saying something to you and you're sitting down and okay, you might not be getting it, it might not make sense, just continue coming to the classes. Subconsciously it's kind of going in your brain, and then when you have those tests you realize, oh yeah, I do know about the reactivity series, oh yeah, I do know about electrolysis. So it is that consistency, even if you are feeling like I'm completely out of my depth here. I'm not sure. Is there anything else you want to add at all?
No, not really. It was really nice speaking to you.
Okay. Awesome, great, perfect, brilliant.